Welcome to the Real Talk with Megan podcast, where we have candid conversations about the things that matter most. I'm your host, Megan, and we're going to deep dive into the topic of mental health. Together, we'll work to destigmatize mental health and start conversations. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready for a real and raw conversation about mental health on the Real Talk with Megan podcast. Welcome to Season 3. Now, life took some unexpected turns the last few months, and my break between seasons was much longer than I had planned. Today, I'm going to share some bits and pieces with you about what's been going on the past 4 months. Now, keep in mind, I'm only going to give you a brief overview because I know myself and some of these topics I really would love to spend entire episodes on. But I titled this episode A New Beginning because this season is a fresh start for me, and I think it'll make more sense as you continue to listen. Now, side note, to those of you who have been listening since the beginning, or even if this is your first episode, I want to say I truly appreciate each and every one of you because honestly, without you, I would just be recording an audio diary, sometimes with friends, and then really just talking to myself. So I really hope that this podcast brings you a sense of you're not alone in your struggles and that it starts some really healthy conversations. When we last left off, it was right after my trip to India. I still think of that trip often, and I'm in pretty constant communication with some friends that I made while I was there. I love getting to hear their updates. I have used this trip as a way to keep in touch with reality and continue to keep perspective in front of me, which is so important. I know that I'm so blessed with all that I have, and even when life isn't easy or it feels like a complete chaos is surrounding me, I know I still have hope through Jesus, and that's what I cling to. That doesn't mean all my problems are fixed, far from it, but it does give me a reason to keep going. So let's jump on in and see what's happened since that trip. The week after I got back from India, I had an appointment scheduled that I had really been looking forward to. It was an evaluation of my mental health. Now, I had some speculations, and I just really wanted to have a professional help me find some insight and gain some clarity so I could learn more about myself. It took a long time to find the right fit and to get the appointment scheduled. Now, if you've ever had to have an assessment like this before, or even sometimes just getting in to see a doctor, you know that it can be so hard at times. So before I left for India, I filled out a very detailed intake form and did a number of online tests that I sent off to this mental health professional that I was going to meet with so that she could look over it before we met. On the day of the evaluation, I was kind of nervous. It was a little scary. I mean, this was something completely new to me. There were a lot of unknowns, and that created some uneasiness inside of me. She made me feel super comfortable. And I answered questions that she had that went along with her evaluation for like 2 hours. After we finished talking, she basically told me she has no doubt in my results, which in a weird way was super comforting. I finally had answers to questions that I had felt like I had had my whole life. When she affirmed my diagnosis, I felt like my whole body took a deep breath for the first time. I was diagnosed with ADHD and as a high masking autistic adult, which means I'm on the autism spectrum. Both ADHD and autism are classified as neurodevelopmental conditions, and they can impact how the brain processes sensory input and cognitive information. They also can impact executive functioning, attention processes, and sensory processing. I basically have two parts of my brain that function similar, but also just different enough that they fight each other on a daily basis. The masking aspect basically means I just mimic what our society deems normal. My brain notices that it's different, and because that it's not normal, it tries its hardest to fit in by mirroring those that are around me. Once you come to the conclusion that you have constantly been masking and you start to take a deeper look, you realize how exhausting it is to keep that mask on. Overall, this diagnosis has opened my eyes to so many positive things in my life, and I know moving forward, it will help me relate and communicate better with others. A huge positive is knowing this about myself. It can help me figure out some health issues because there are some that go hand in hand. And I might finally be on track to get some answers about my physical health as well, which I've been dealing with for so many years. Like I said, I'll dive deeper into the diagnosis on another episode really soon because I have a lot to share about it. But what I want you to know is that so many of my life experiences were validated when I discovered this about myself. As I continue to research and learn more about what this means for me, I'm flooded with memories of times that I felt less than and like an outsider. And it turns out it was really just because my brain functions differently than what was viewed as normal. So it's not a bad thing. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I now realize that the way my brain processes the information around me can actually be super beneficial now that I know how to recognize it and I see the beauty it brings. So, even while that was kind of a scary moment at first, but then it led to some huge revelations in my life, this next moment that happened was an extremely low moment for me. And honestly, a majority of people don't even know that I went through such a dark time. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics, but a few years back, I had a really hard situation in my life that kind of wrecked me. I processed it and I was at peace. That was until a few months ago. It was like a ton of bricks were dropped on me and I was completely crushed. Doing something hard sucks when you have to do it because there's no other options at the moment. There are times in my life like this one where I just want life to be fair, but it's not. My parents used to quote The Lion King to me growing up because one, it was one of my favorite movies. The quote was from Scar. He says this: "Life's not fair, is it? You see, I shall never be king, and you shall never see the light of another day." We used to say this kind of jokingly, but the first part really stands true. Life isn't fair. Now, because of my diagnosis, I've learned that the autism part of my brain really wants life to be fair. When I felt like my life was being crushed under a ton of bricks, I had to say to myself, even out loud, that life isn't fair. I know I really want it to be, but that's not the reality. Now, did that make me instantly feel better after I said that to myself? Heck no, because it was still a crappy situation where I felt like my voice had been stolen from me. What made it harder is my voice is something I worked so hard to even have, and in an instant, it felt like it was gone. That moment caused me to reevaluate a lot of things in my life, and I had to walk through some really hard conversations. I wanted to give up as I sat on the couch, truly feeling empty. As the tears streamed down my cheeks and I allowed myself to sit in that emotion. If you've ever experienced a gut punch emotionally, you have a glimpse of what I was feeling in that moment. But I knew I couldn't sit there forever. In the wise words of Bluey, checklist: have a cry, check. Pick myself up, check. Dust myself off, check. Keep going. The show must go on. Life is hard and it's not fair, but the show must go on. Situations like this one that I experienced, and even because of my insecurities, it makes it really hard to have confidence in myself and what I'm capable of. But we don't have to let these moments define who we are. I know that's easier said than done. And let me tell you, I am a work in progress. It's just like I say to a majority of my clients when I talk to them in counseling sessions. I also have to say this to myself. I want you to be a healthy, whole person. That means spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. Those 5 areas make up who you are. We can always grow to be a better version of ourselves. Now, that is a perfect segue to what happened next. The church that I'm on staff at partnered with a local counseling organization, and we opened a counseling center at the beginning of this year, which is incredible. I've been working alongside my friend and licensed mental health counselor, Joni Stroud Martin, who has been a guest on this podcast in the past, so her name might be familiar to you. Also, side note, I definitely need to get a podcast with us going again because I love those. And if you haven't heard them, go and listen to them. She's incredible. She has a wealth of information, and I love every time I get to have conversations with her. But this is a huge opportunity for our community. And I'm so excited how God is going to use this center to help people in their healing journeys. Alongside the counseling center, something huge has happened in my own life that has been years in the making. I sent my application in at the beginning of this year, and a couple weeks ago, I received my acceptance letter, and I am officially a board certified pastoral counselor. I have completed over 132 hours of classes in the past couple of years. The first 42 were for my mental health coaching program, which I talked about before on here, and the other 90 plus hours were for my biblical counseling certificate program, which I completed this past year. I don't often take the time to just sit in the moment of my accomplishments or successes. And I've recently learned that because of the way my brain views success, it views it as something that's expected. Like anything less than success feels like a failure. So, because of that way of thinking, I've never been able to really celebrate my successes. But when I received this in the mail, that's exactly what I did. I am so proud of myself and for all that I've achieved. I've always wanted to help people, but I never really felt like I had the tools to do so with confidence. This little piece of paper that I now have hanging on the wall in my office announces to the world I'm board certified and legit. It gives me all the confidence in the world. When I look at it, I can see all the hours that I put into learning and studying and the knowledge that I've gained from it. I also can see a glimpse of what the future holds. Being able to help people using what I've learned about how the brain works while also balancing it with a biblical understanding. I am so honored when a client comes into my office and trusts me enough to walk alongside them in their healing journey. So, to my past, current, or future clients, thank you for trusting me. And I pray God will guide you along your path of healing. And like I said before, my biggest goals are that one, people will know that they're not alone in their struggles. And two, I want them to be whole in every area of their lives spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. And now I feel like this point of my episode, it's like an infomercial saying, well, wait, there's more. Because I realize everything I just talked about so far was a lot. Not to mention, we had Thanksgiving and Christmas, New Year's, all in there as well. This past year, I've also been working behind the scenes in pre production for our next movie with First Capital Films. And last month, we filmed the whole movie in 22 days. I think I'm still recovering from it. Now, if you've never made a movie, let me give you some insights. It takes a lot of hard work to make a film with excellence. Now, I know I can only speak from the perspective of our productions, but there is a ton of things that go into making a movie. And this was our biggest production yet. On set, there was a lot of stress, there was laughter. We had to fight sickness and the weather. We had everything from rain to wind to snow. And we had a few sunny days mixed in there, but it was not at the beach. But we still enjoyed them. Our team had high moments filled with laughter, and we had some not so great moments where it felt like if it could go wrong, it was going wrong. Like, for example, we had some of our team stuck in an elevator that had dropped at least a floor. I wasn't in it, so I'm not sure how much it dropped, but it was super scary. While also having construction at the hotel we were at where we were supposed to be filming. But what is incredible to me is despite all the crap we faced, despite our differences, despite the creativity differences, we all came together to create something beautiful and meaningful. A big part of First Capital Films is we want to share stories that provide hope to those that watch it, and this story is no exception. Yes, we create faith based films, but we don't want them to be the stereotypical cheesy Christian films. Our last few projects have been based on true stories of people that we know. This film is called Merry Christmas, Elijah. And I would invite you to join us on this journey. You can do that by following our social media channels on Facebook and Instagram at Merry Christmas Elijah Movie. This story is a road trip, and you see a father take his son on. The son has a high support needs autistic kid. And throughout the film, you see the joys of someone on the spectrum can bring, but you also see the struggles that come along with having an autistic kid. Some of those struggles that the outside world never sees, but these are the parents' daily lives. I personally hope that this movie will bring more awareness to the autistic community and bring acceptance along with it. It already had a sweet spot in my heart because I have people close to me that are on the spectrum, but now it's even closer connected to me because of my own diagnosis. I know that I will never fully relate to the stories that we're telling or families that this is their normal life, but I can see just a glimpse of it. I pray that the parents that watch this film feel like they're not alone. Not only are we trying to make a great movie, but we also want to partner with these families to make something bigger than just a movie. And that's the cool thing is we have already started this partnership with parents that are in our community. And, we've asked them, what can we do that would be helpful? We never want to come in and act like we have all the answers, but we want to learn alongside them and give them support in their journey. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing. The movie should be released this coming December because it's a Christmas movie. So keep your eyes out. I'm sure I'll talk about it more, but I am so excited to see it all come together and for you guys to be able to watch it. Okay, so that leaves me with one last thing. What's next? The honest answer is I'm not sure. But I do know I want to get back into the habit of more regular podcast episodes. Yay! And I also know that I want to continue advocating for mental health and neurodiversity by trying to break the stigmas that society's placed on us and helping people understand that they're not alone. To those of you who are listening right now, thank you for joining me on this podcast and this journey of growth. I can't wait to see what the future has in store for all of us. And like I say in so many episodes, if you are struggling or if there is something in your life and you have no one to talk to, please reach out. My email is in the show notes. I would love to chat with you or help you find direction and where to go from here. Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Megan. Remember, you are not alone. Seeking help is a sign of strength, and taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. We'll see you next time for more honest conversations.